normally my Saturday panel. All my panels are like on the wrong days this weekend, but that's okay. We can do Saturday on Sunday and Sunday on Saturday and whatever. So this is probably the panel I did yesterday is kind of a second thought to this panel. So if you're at the Animal Crossing panel, this panel is not about being a voice actor. It's not about funny, dirty stories like all my other panels. I make sure to do a little bit of everything. But this panel is very near and dear to me. And so if for some reason you find out that this panel is not your cup of tea, I won't be the least bit upset. I'll tell you goodbye just because I'll tell you goodbye. But this panel is definitely not for everyone. And I usually start off with a description of the original It Gets Better project, just because I think it's a good springboard for what we talk about in this panel. Is there anybody that doesn't know anything about the It Gets Better panel, or the It Gets Better project? Yay, you're the reason I have notes. Because I always when I used to do this, I was like, there was this thing that happened around, so I was like, I should probably get the actual data. So the It Gets Better project, still got my Animal Crossing notes up. The It Gets Better project was started on September 21st of 2010 by a pretty controversial LGBTQ author, activist, podcaster named Dan Savage. He hosts a podcast called Savage Love, and it's like love, dating, and sex advice for LGBTQ folk. And it was a video project. It was a reaction to a string of almost 13 suicides of young people over the course of about 9 weeks. So, and if you lived in the States, you definitely remember that time period because it was all over the news every night. It seemed like there was some young person that had taken their life. And the one thing these people all had in common is they were bullied for either being LGBTQ or perceived as LGBTQ, which I think is really important that we add that perceived thing in there. The youngest kid to take his life was a kid that was 9 years old, and he lived close to where my folks live in Houston. So I don't think at 9 years old, well, I knew at 9, but I was ahead of the curve maybe. But I think some of these kids were just bullied, period. I don't think it has anything to do with being LGBT or anything like that. I think some kids are just bullied. And so the idea was a simple one. Dan Savage being like a well-adjusted, very successful, happy, married, gay man. At the time, not married, because this is pre-wedding law. Just wanted to do a video, an encouraging video, saying, hey, look, I get it. I get that right now, every problem that comes up seems like the end of the world. Everything that you deal with seems mountainous, but it's not. And if you hold on to the people that love you and you let people help you, your life will get better in the flash of an eye, or in the blink of an eye. Flash of a thunderstruck, guys, I don't know. And it was really cool. It was a simple message. And I think over the years I've taken a lot of flack for doing this panel because Dan Savage himself can be quite a bully at times. And I always respond that what makes someone great sometimes is that they have an idea that's bigger than themselves. Gandhi was just a human being, but the way he thought was a big deal. And so likewise with Dan Savage, and I'm not putting Dan Savage on any Gandhi-like status, but I think his idea was a fantastic one. To reach out into the darkness that is the internet and try to help somebody you don't know, a stranger, somebody that you've been in their shoes, just to reassure them that their life will be okay. So the project kind of blew up. Pretty soon every celebrity you could think of was doing the It Gets Better message. And I used to ask, does anybody know who's done one? But I got the same answer, Lady Gaga, Jane Lynch, Neil Patrick Harris. Well, yeah. What started happening though, where we started seeing messages from people we never expected, like the band Rise Against, the New York Yankees, Google, Pixar. Pixar still has my favorite video. And while those messages are important, and then October 21st of 2010, that date's only important because it's 1 month to the day of the start of the project. Our president, our former president, not our new president, talk about him, made a message. And his was a very politically correct message. It did not mention sexuality, but it mentioned believing in yourself and loving yourself and taking care of yourself. But the thing that gave this project the teeth that I think it eventually developed were the videos that were made by people that look like you and I. People just at their laptops, in their bedrooms, in their living rooms. My favorite, there's this lesbian mother who's like chopping up, she's cooking dinner basically, the whole video. She's like chopping up vegetables and dicing onions, and she's talking about, you know, growing up in a rural area and having religious folks, and like how, you know, she was always led to believe that she was going to lead a lonely life. She talked about a time in her life where she wanted to die because, you know, she couldn't imagine being in a spot where she had no one at the end of the day. And the cool thing is at the end of the video, which is also the mean thing she does, she's like, no, I'm sorry, forgive me, I have to have dinner with my family. And it's the most beautiful thing, but what a horribly rude woman to not invite me to dinner. I'm going to have to watch her cook. I think those videos are what made it real for a lot of people, because they look like you and I. It's very easy to put a celebrity in front of a microphone. It's another to look into someone's bedroom and see their dirty clothes and hear them talking about problems they're having. It makes them very real. And so, flash forward, the project got bigger and bigger and bigger. It eventually outgrew its YouTube roots, and they had to build their own video server and move the collection of videos to another place where they could have control over them. In March of 2011, the first ever, and this is kind of a big deal, the first ever educational summit was held in DC to discuss how to tackle bullying in the school systems, which is unbelievable to me, because as a kid that lives in Texas, you know, the answer to being bullied is fight back. So for adults to sit up and take notice and say, hey, this is something we maybe need to talk about, was a big deal. Eventually there was a book published, and if you're interested in LGBTQ struggles, it's a fantastic read. I suggest you read it. But that brings us to the weird question, is why are we talking about this at an anime convention? In January 2011, I approached the board at a convention that I worked at, who I was luckily one of the executives at this convention. I just hit my head. I'm accident prone this week, jeez. And I said, hey, I'd really like to do an It Gets Better panel. I think it would be really good for us, and you know, it's definitely needed. And I was turned down immediately by the head of programming, who said it was too sexual and it was too political. And I was like, well, I promise I will keep all the lights on and no one will change clothes. And what's so political about talking? You know, there's no harm in talking about things. And she just agreed, and luckily I had seniority over her, and I requested to speak to the board. I said, well, I want to do this, and I'm going to address the board about it. And so I got a heads up that the board would want me to address two questions, or mostly one big question. The two were, why do you want to do this panel? And the big one was, what does it have to do with an anime convention? So, there was my task. And I only really came up with 3 answers. I never even answered why I wanted to do the panel. But the first thing I said is, I told them that, you know, while Big Bang Theory might make it look chic to be a nerd, and while there may be like this, you know, nerd gaming culture elite status that there is now, growing up as a nerd is not, you're not the cool kid at school at all. You're the kid with the manga in your back pocket that gets skipped for every sports event, which is fine. You can stand in the outfield and read your manga. But most of us, 99% of us, know what it's like to either be an outsider or feel like an outsider at some point. And I think that's pretty powerful stuff. It's hard to have no answer as to why everyone else has a lot of friends and you don't. And so that was number 1, the outsider factor, and what I think is what makes nerds so much cooler than a lot of people. 2, this is where a lot of us go to get away from that. Like, conventions are where, you know, you could be a little short, chubby kid who's shy and doesn't make friends very well during the week, but you could be Kenshin be Jigglypuff. That's all. You could be Lovely Space Princess. You could be whoever you wanted for the weekend. That's what you got to be. And I think 99% of the friends I know that deal with a lot of depression and stuff, this is what got them through a lot of really tough times. So that was two. I only had one more. And sadly, the last one was the one that I think opened the most eyes. But over the last 7 years, now 10, you can track and chart the level of intimidation and bullying within our community now. Whether it's people that love to troll each other, whether it's people that love to make jokes about others' costume, weight, sexuality, gender identity, whatever it is, somehow over the last few years that has become us. Like, nerds have started to act like jocks. Somebody was like, "You're very 80s to use the word jock." I'm sorry, I'm old. Luckily, that was enough. They said, "You know what? Yeah, maybe there's something to this. Maybe we should talk about this." And luckily, I've done it at every convention I've been to since. The only convention that has ever told me I couldn't do it, they put it on the schedule, and then when I got there, they canceled the panel. I've shockingly never returned to. So they can just be there, whatever. They can have another, alternate dog panel or video room or whatever. But I really don't understand having a convention that is celebrating nerd culture and not doing anything to preserve nerd culture. So that's why we're here. And it's funny because just like when I started doing the Animal Crossing panel, when I started doing this panel, I didn't really know what to expect. I just sat down in a room and started talking. And the things people say to me are some of the most amazing things and some of the saddest things. But like, this panel will be determined by you. Like, you can talk about whatever you want. The only caveats I have is this is a space where you can say whatever you want. The only thing I ask is that you be respectful of other people. So you don't have to believe in the same God someone else does, but you don't have permission to clown that person's God. You don't have to talk like a Puritan during the day, but if there are children here, be respectful of language and parents and things like that. But that said, I want you guys to have the floor and be able to talk about whatever you want to talk about. So with that, like, what kinds of bullying do you guys see around you on a day-to-day basis? Yeah, look, everybody's so polite and hands raised. Yeah.
We're actually from a small town.
Yeah.
We are a very small group of us who love everything anime. And a large group of our group is actually part of the LGBTQ community.
Yeah.
And I remember in school, all my friends were terrified from they were part of the community because my step-parents were Jehovah's Witnesses.
Wow, yeah.
And I was studying at the time, but when I
Yeah.
that's fine, like, you're not gonna, like, stop talking to me or anything. I'm
Yeah.
No, because you're still a human, you're just
Absolutely.
a little different, that's all. There's nothing.
Small towns are hardest because I think everybody knows everyone else's business. I have a friend that lives in a town of 300 people, and I was like, no, you don't. He goes, yeah, I do. And I was like, that's a small town. And he said, you kind of can't mess up in a small town because everybody, you could like tell one friend and like suddenly everybody knows about that rash you have or something. He said it's really bad. So I think it's more intimidating the smaller the playing field sometimes. But yeah, religion creeps into it a lot, and especially when you have a small group of people that are kind of different, like nerds or punk rockers or whatever, in a town, you kind of sit out like a sore, bum because you're having fun and you don't look like everybody else, which is funny. I think it's funny that like one of the things we get picked on for the most, the younger we are, is the things that most people spend their whole adult lives trying to change. Like, as a kid, you try to be just like everyone around you. And yet, the minute you get to a certain age point, you start fighting for this your own identity, which is so funny because, a lot of people are programmed not to. They just want to look like everyone around them. I think the important thing, and something I learned from this group of Homestuck fans, Homestuck has a real stigma attached to it in the States. There you go, yeah, proud horn-wearing Homestuck fans. There you go. I met a group of Homestuck fans in Iowa that took a spin on the way people look at Homestuck because they were tired of being stigmatized and made fun of, and so they created this group called Let Me Tell You About Homestuck. And the whole thing is they were pitching Homestuck. They're like, you know, instead of making this about in-jokes that only we get, let's try to see how many people we can get to like Homestuck. And that was their mission. And I think the neat thing about that is like they were bringing forth the happiness they found in it. And I think it's hard because sometimes I think we as anime fans get picked on a lot for just doing that, just for liking something, for having a good time, having cat ears, you know, like you know, wearing a colored tutu and going to a party or whatever. Like, so what? We're having fun. We're having a good time. Yeah.
We actually in high school, the group of us, we do each month we show up in a costume.
Oh, nice.
And I remember when we were, because we've all graduated now, but when me and my best friend were graduating, I actually had one of the grade 9ers coming up and saying if they're going to miss me because I had the signature pink wig at always.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to miss seeing you in your pink wig.
That's cool. You were what I call a lighthouse. I'll talk about lighthouses later, but like sometimes you don't realize that like when you live your life bravely and strangely, that like people are paying attention to you. There are people that are like, man, I'm going to be like that girl. You know, like. And that's probably the best way she could express it. It's like, I'm gonna miss you. I miss your pink hair. But like, when further down the road, when that person maybe wants to do something weird, you might be the inspiration. Like, I'm just gonna do it, just like that pink wig. I'm just gonna do it. So that's cool. What other kinds of bullying? Yeah.
You've been doing this panel, I know, for the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Has it gotten results? Like, have you seen kind of a noticeable impact in this?
Yes and no. Like, the results for the panel are really for the attendees of the panel. Like, a lot of people don't really have an avenue to talk. A lot of young people really don't have a place where they can just kind of air their grievances and say things. The thing that I found the coolest is the number of parents that have attended this panel. There was a lady, her name is Robin's Son, because it's like Robin's Son, like it's one word, Robin's Son. And she was a mother, and she sat on the panel, and she was listening to kids, and kids in the States have a lot more they deal with as far as, I'm not going to say they deal with more bullying, but kids are a little vicious at times in certain parts of the country, and so these kids are talking about being bullied physically, you know, mentally. And there's a lot of anger towards parents that we heard that day. Like, well, my parents are this, my parents, and it was like a lot of really, really negative talk towards, you know, raising kids and parents. And she's a super awesome hippie lady, and she goes, now, Greg, can I have the floor for a second? I was like, by all means, take the floor. She said, well, you know, I'm a mother, and she goes, and I find it fascinating that a lot of what I'm hearing are things that kids need to express to their parents. There are things that they need to say, but that they can't. Either they can't because their parents won't listen, or they can't because they don't know how to express it. And she said, so is there anybody here, if you could say one thing to your parents, what would it be? And I've never seen this happen in a panel. Every single hand in the room went up. And I was like, oh, crap. But everybody had something they wanted to say. There was something that they couldn't articulate. And so by that, I think this panel is a big success because I think it allows, oh my God. There's an emergency for a second. I think it has allowed a lot of kids who go through some of these feelings to actually have a place to sit and think and say out loud some things that they never get to say. As far as dealing with bullies, this is why I've never made an It Gets Better video. I finally have the narrative that I'm going to use for it. I'm going to shoot it this year. Bullies don't get better. My country is a great example of that. We selected the biggest bully on the planet. People that are scumbags stay that way. But that's not kind of the point of the It Gets Better project. It's that the older you get, the less you care about stupid people. the older you get, the opinions of judgmental and, you know, overbearing people don't matter. Some of us are lucky and are born into a great family. Other people have to find a chosen family the older they get. But people don't get better. We just get better at prioritizing who we divide our attention amongst. We get more selective of whose judgment matters to us. And so it's hard to weigh out goods and bads, like effectiveness of this panel, because in some ways I think it's neat. Like, I think personally I've made a lot of accomplishments when I'm in Maine, which is where Robinson lives. 4 years ago, they told me that right after my panel was a mental health panel. And I was like, huh, that's cool. And there's somebody from the Bangor Institute of Mental Health or something like that was coming to speak. And so I was like, I'm going to stick around for this mental health thing. I don't know what it is, but I want to see it. And so this real butch lady showed up about 4 or 5 minutes right before my panel. And was like, I'm Missy. And I was like, hey Missy, what's up? Oh, I'm gonna do the counseling thing. And I was like, oh, are you doing the panel after mine? And she's like, well, I'm from Bangor Mental Health. I was like, yeah, I know you're doing the panel. She goes, well, I don't know what a panel is, but I'll do one. What's a panel? And I was like, oh crap, what's going on? Well, she was sent because someone told her that, or someone called the Better Bangor Mental Health Association, or whatever it's called, and said that they had seen a panel where a bunch of kids had talked about depression and feeling suicidal and blah, blah, blah. And so they, as a group, sent a counselor to just be there to talk to people. And so, we were like 3 minutes into my panel time before I found out what she was there for. But I was like, well, then why don't you just sit with me on this panel? Okay, I'll sit. I can sit. And like, I love Missy. She comes every year now. But she was just like, I'm just going to do what I'm supposed to do. And so she sat, and she was like radically affected by what she heard kids saying. Like, I mean, it was very clear she works in crisis prevention. And several times she was, and what's your name? Somebody goes, Shelly. Or she's like, okay, I'm going to talk to you later. And she made a point of like writing down different kids' names. And so at the end of the panel, I said, hey, I want to introduce you to somebody. This is Missy. I want you to introduce yourself. And she said, hi, my name is Missy. I work as a suicide prevention counselor. I also work rape crisis hotline. I do blah, blah, blah. That's all this stuff. And she goes, I just came here to tell you that I love all of you and you all matter. And I'm trained to deal with this. If you want to talk to me about anything, I'll just stick around and talk to you as long as you want. And she stuck around for almost 2 hours. And she had a little crowd waiting to talk to her when I left the room. So, like, I think when I look in terms of, like, that, I think that's a huge benefit. Now she has a panel. She knows what a panel is, and she has a panel. It took her. We're slowly turning her into a nerd. She's going to become a con person one day. But I think slowly being able to talk about this and find that there's an audience for this has been helpful. But as far as like changing the landscape, I think a lot of us are doing everything we can within the con community to change that. You'll see cons that have zero harassment policies now. Cosplay is not consent is this big thing all over the States right now. And those are things that, shockingly enough, when I first started going to cons, it was nothing to see kids taking upskirt shots. Kids walking up behind cosplayers and like taking pictures of their skirts. Which there are laws against that in some places now. So like, I don't think it's just this panel, but I think we as a community realize that we have our own set of problems and we're trying to address them as well. So I know there have been 2 cons recently that designated themselves as safe space cons, which is fine. I just think cons should be safe spaces. I think cons are supposed to be where we go and have fun. Don't worry about what someone's judging us or thinking about us. So we kind of derailed for a bit. Like, who's got other forms of bullying that they deal with that they see around them or whatnot? No, yeah.
Being ignored or excluded.
Yeah, exclusionary behavior is one of those weird ones. And I learned that again I had this guy that was I used to do a panel called Why Your Fandom Sucks, which is funny because I don't know why. People would come purposely like mad. I'm like, why do you think the anti-bullying guy is going to pick on anybody? Like, the whole point was to say that all of our fandoms suck and, you know, like, we all need to have a better sense of humor about it. But there's this guy that really came to tell me how much he hated Homestuck, and he just could not stop. And he's like, Homestuck this, Homestuck this, Homestuckers. He was calling Homestuckers, which I thought was funny. We're like, that sounds dirty. We talked for a while, and like, everything he had to say was about Homestuck, how much he hated Homestuck. And I was like, hey, you really hate Homestuck, don't you? And he's like, I do. And I was like, can you explain why? I was like, do you know anything about Homestuck? And he's, no, I don't want to. And I was like, okay, well, help me out. Like, what's the problem? And then, like, for a guy that I thought was real short-sighted and really angry, had a really eloquent point. He said, you know, I come to these things to feel like I'm a part of something. I want to feel like I'm a part of something fun and cool. He said, when I run into a group of people that are, no, it just bothered me, sorry, that have some kind of inside joke, and they're like keeping me out of the party and like laughing and making fun of people that don't like what they like, he said, then I feel excluded, and then I get angry. And I was like, well, you're certainly eloquent. But it's true, and that's why I think that Let Me Tell You About Homestuck crew is so funny, because they're like, no, we're not making an inside joke. Come here, we want you to, you know, join the party with us. But I think that's being isolated and being excluded is something that a lot of nerds, you know, have dealt with. Whether you're in a room full of, you know, whether you're a nerdy guy and you're in a room full of like big, you know, dudes talking about some sports that you're not into, or whether you're, you know, a girl that is into reading and stuff and really don't care what Paris Hilton is doing right now, and are having to listen to like a lot of gossip. You know, a lot of us have been in a situation where we feel just like a fish out of water, and I think that's one of those things. I think it's a common thing. I watched this documentary recently, and they were talking about raves. It was a rave. It was something about Electric Daisy Carnival, and that takes place in Las Vegas. And this one DJ is like, it's like all the kids that ate lunch alone finally figured out they all liked each other and they got together and had a big party. And that's kind of what we do. Like that's this. We you know, have a party. And the fact is, like, it's centered around anime and fandom, but like, man, Star Trek fans have taught us you don't even need new content to meet in a hotel every year and have a party. Like, we like anime. Yeah.
I'm not up to date on any of these new groups.
Yeah.
Can you enlighten me as to what this Homestuck thing is?
Homestuck, yeah. It's big. Oh, yeah. Since we've got a Homestuck fan, why don't you tell us about Homestuck? That's a great way to do it.
Sure, let me tell you about Homestuck. In my comment about avoiding John Egbert, who gets the game called Sucker, thinking of his friends were going to try to destroy him. The webcomic is on Egbert.
Yeah. So it was webcomic, and the thing that was really cool is the Hussey, the guy that created it, when it first started, he encouraged fans to do derivative projects. He let them do video games, do their own Homestuck stories, and it was a community that kind of blew up with a lot of really cool creative stuff. There are a big number of people, I wouldn't say represented, but a number of characters within Homestuck that a lot of people that were dealing with gender identity issues identified with, because there's a whole genderless group, there's a whole genderless class of characters within Homestuck, which is so weird. It's actually Adventures in MS Paint, but everybody just called it Homestuck. That's not, the funny thing is, somebody's like, well, I was looking for Homestuck and I couldn't find it. I was like, that's not the name of it. But it's a fandom, and much like I think of different fandoms that have been picked on over the years, like much like Italian fandom, that they grew in popularity and almost had their own subculture. Like they almost had their own set of rules and pecking orders and things like that. Much like that, Homestuck became a really popular thing really fast, and so people that weren't on the ground level didn't like it and didn't know about it, you know, did what people do and started picking on Homestuck fans. Now, I will say this, in the panel that I used to do called Why Your Fandom Sucks, there were several groups of Homestuck fans that would purposely be obnoxious and do things to call attention to themselves, some of it destructive. There's one actually that took place at this Boston's Pizza. At point, and everybody looked, I actually think it's like that direction if I'm getting my directions right. But the Boston's Pizza right out here, there are a group of Homestuck fans that had a bucket, and they were all spitting in this bucket. And for Homestuck fans who know what that is, and I'm not going to explain the bucket, because this is an audience fan. It's really not that dirty, but it's a kind of a reproductive thing. But they're all spitting in this bucket, and then when they're told to leave, they knock it over, and the spit goes all over the table and leave, which is disgusting. And that's one of those inside joke type things that a group of friends thought they would do something funny. And that's kind of, there was a running gag, the whole panel on that Why Your Fandom Sucks panel, because there were lots of stories about kids that did things that, like, if only an adult had seen them and just gone, what, are you high? Don't do that. No, don't. It was a lot of things like that. But you can't paint people with that broad of a brush. Because just like there may be a crazy Homestuck fan, there's also a smelly comic book guy. That doesn't mean everybody that likes comic books smells. It's just like a stereotype that people unfortunately paint, comic book guys to be smelly guys, or I guess DDR guys to be smelly guys. Yeah.
With fandoms, everybody has the bad part of fandom.
Yeah, absolutely.
Every fandom has their bad part. Just fandoms like Homestuck and I guess Italia too.
Yeah.
Their bad parts are lit up by people.
Yeah.
So that's what people see when they see Homestuck.
Yeah. It's kind of like complaints. You don't ever hear people talking about what good time they had. You always hear people whining about what they didn't like. Yeah, exactly. People do light up the negative side of it because that's usually the side you see. Yeah.
After I read Homestuck, I was honestly something that I was reacting to. I always thought that I was going to understand what I did.
Yeah. I think a lot of that has to do with the way we approach people. I think if I come up to somebody and tell somebody, you're like, let me tell you about Homestuck. I love it. If you can bring something out positive, that's a good thing. But I think a lot happened that turned the tide that way, and a lot of it was this con bullying mentality. It was very hip to mess with Homestuck fans. Mostly because of troll culture, which is really hysterical to use that word in relation to Homestuck, because there are a whole group of characters called trolls. But they're characters, they're not actual like trolls. They're just trolls. They're actual trolls. Yeah, they're actual trolls with horns. But people on the internet thought it funny to light up Homestuck fans because of their age and because of their enthusiasm for the fandom. It was the easiest bait. It was the easiest hook to bait. And so Homestuck fans were kind of played the fool a lot online, and that's where a lot of that happened. I think is a lot of people just started messing with Homestuck fans on Tumblr, on Facebook, on Reddit. So exclusionary stuff and like inner fandom bickering, I love, has gone on since the beginning of time. Old school fans. Who here has ever heard that Gundam versus Ava garbage, right? Like, this, fandoms have always had their little inner wars, and I think it's so funny, because, like, this person's like, well, Fullmetal Alchemist is the best anime of all time. I'm like, and before that it was Ranma, and before that it was Evangelion. Like, it's something that we as fans get wound up, and unfortunately, because we're enthusiastic about it, stuff like that happens, but I'm glad to see you representing Homestuck. I'm glad there's somebody that can, like when he asked what is Homestuck, there's somebody that can actually tell the facts and the details. Because I always mess up like one thing and then Homestuck fans are mad like, Greg Ayres said it was Teresia, not Teresi. And I'm like, oh my god, shut up. Like, so yeah, but I'm glad that there's a fan that can represent fandom. What other kinds of harassment, bullying do you see? Yeah.
Body shaming.
Body shaming, thank you. Now we're on to the top 10 of the bullying who's who. Yeah, body shaming. An incident happened this weekend I'm not going to bring light to, but somebody said something really disgusting to somebody about their weight. And one of the funny things in the States when I do the rave, I don't let dancers on stage, because there's this whole group of people that are like, I'm a professional go-go dancer. I'm like, oh, too bad I only want nerds on my stage. Like, and I don't let any anybody that's in a tutu that looks like they need a little bit of attention on stage. I put dudes, nerdy, skinny dudes that like to take their shirt off and dance very awkwardly. I put girls, jiggly girls, and skinny girls, and nerdy girls. Like, I just think it should look like a buffet and not a car show, you know? And so somebody gave me a hard time about having a really big dude on stage. And my favorite thing is he got carried away. I turned around and he was dancing around in his underwear at one point. The pictures of me are hysterical because I'm like, whatever, like, just like, there's next people on the stage tonight, like, well, like I said the other night, I'm not going to yuck anybody's yum. Like, that guy just wanted to dance around in his underwear. As long as it didn't get obscene, I don't care. And the fact that he's bigger, it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter at all. There's a lot of body shaming within the cosplay community, which is ridiculous.
And it sucks because we escape from that day-to-day
Exactly, that judgment.
Only to come somewhere where they were told we cannot cosplay a character we adore because of our
And that's the whole point, is to dress up like a character you like. That's all. Like, even if you bought it, I'm going to upset some purists for a second. Guess what? If you bought it and you enjoy wearing it, you're cosplaying. Congratulations. And you're doing it right. It's so weird because you're right. That's the whole point of cosplaying, is to have fun and to go into a place and celebrate something you love without someone going, you know, looking down their nose. Like, there's a whole documentary made about bullying in the cosplay community called Cosplay with Kindness, and I took part of that. The little girl that made it, little girl, she's a grown woman. I still call people kids, and I'm like in my I'll be 50 this year, and I think I'm a kid, which I guess says a lot. But her name is Kaylee, and she was in her first costume, and somebody goes, you know, you're doing that wrong, right? And it like ruined her day. Like, just that one simple, really cruddy remark, and it was from an elitist cosplayer, you know, like, oh, well, you know, that's the wrong color. And she was like, well, I know, and then it was bad, because then she had to say, well, I know my cosplay isn't any good, but it was a Niku cosplay, so I thought I love Niku, and she was like, oh, you're doing it wrong, and just kind of walked off. And she tells the story in the documentary, she had a really bad time, and my favorite thing about cosplay in general, it's like any craft, the longer you do it, the better you get at it. And so in that same documentary, we asked this girl named Erica Wise to speak. She's like a cosplayer from the Midwest. And it's funny because when I was interviewed, I told this story, and they used the pictures that I'm referring to, and then Erica's interviewed at the end of it. But she made a post about her first cosplay. She called it Ghetto Sephiroth. It was just a gray witch wig and like a long duster, like trench coat and a wooden sword and Diet Pepsi. Like, and there's this picture of her like sitting in a chair, like, and it's just like anybody else you see at a convention. She's just having fun. And she said she's so glad that she never suffered the judgment, because it was a little college convention. She was so glad she never suffered the judgment of someone going, you know, you're really no good at this. Because she said at the time, she was the kind of person that would have just folded in half and said, oh wow, I'm never doing this again. Well, then she posted, when she originally told the story, she posted a picture of her new Sephiroth costume, and it's like breathtaking. The wig comes up and bends perfectly down, and it's leather, and all the belts are sewn on, and her sword is actual metal, and it's gorgeous, and she looks just like Sephiroth. But she couldn't have gotten any better if she had been discouraged, or if she felt like she couldn't do it. And that's the thing about cosplay. The more you do it, the better you get at it. So, cosplay shaming and body shaming in general is so ridiculous. When you meet somebody, like, even if you're a judgmental person, the first thing you see about them is their weight or their, disability or something about their physical form. That's never the way you describe somebody. Tell me about your friend so-and-so. Oh, well, she's a big girl. Nobody does that. It would make you look like a scumbag. They're like, oh, she's really cool. She's into science. And that, like, you start talking about what's inside of that person. So I think it's funny that, like, on a shallow level, people still think it's funny to poke fun at things that really don't matter, that at the end of the day really won't ever come into play. What else? There's one that I haven't heard yet. Stabbing two-faced, mean girl syndrome. Yeah, mean girls club. There's a lot of that. There's a lot of that in life. And because I have a lot of younger friends because I do this for a living, I have a friend recently that just was gutted by a close friend. There were a group of people that were meeting, and he had been excluded from an online group, and they were talking about how ugly he was and how stupid he was. And the funny thing is, he's hot. Like, he's actually a really attractive guy, which I'm like, these people need glasses. You're not ugly at all. But he's not. He is an awkward kid. But that's his charm. He's awkward as hell, and he's funny. But someone took a screenshot of the things they were saying and sent it to him anonymously on Whisper or whatever, one of those stupid, anonymous chat things. And he was just destroyed, like just destroyed. And he's somebody that like I would rabidly defend. Like I would step in front of a train for this kid. So like I couldn't talk to him the first night because I was traveling. I was on the way back from the convention. And luckily I had to think about it a lot before I talked to him, because it was just I was destroyed for him because I know how sensitive he is. And the advice I gave him is advice I have to take to myself now when I think about like somebody is making fun of me or there's a group of people talking about me. One of the greatest mysteries in life is trying to figure out who is a scumbag and who isn't. You know, like some of us have dated a scumbag and didn't know it for 2 years, but look, their hands up, yep. So when somebody does something to tell you what a scumbag, they just did your homework for you. You just got ahead of that curve, and it doesn't help the hurt at all, because I just let him cry for a little bit and talk to him about what it feels like. But at the end of the day, you're better off without people like that. It's so weird. I have that happen within fandom. I have like groups of friends that hate other groups of friends, and I just have to excuse myself because I'm like, oh, this person's blah 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 blah. I was like, hey, I gotta pee. Like I'll just say something weird, like I gotta go to the bathroom, and I'm gone. Just because it's weird to be a party to that, and to know how bad it hurts. Because if you've been on the other side of that, you know how bad it hurts too. So I try to excuse myself and make it known why I left the room. Like, look, I just really don't like talking about people that aren't there or whatever. So yeah, there's that. It's still one that I can't imagine we missed. Sexual harassment? Anybody ever dealt with sexual harassment at all? Or anybody, let's not put anyone on blast. You or anyone you know someone who's been sexually harassed? Yeah, cosplayers get it a lot. I have a male cosplay friend that dresses as Cloud, and he gets a lot of really weird stuff done at the conventions. Sexual harassment is one of those things that luckily, if it happens in real life, there's other cosplayers that wear uniforms and they carry weapons. And the cosplayers that are allowed to cosplay every day. Things happen in schools and conventions that we kind of think we're outside of the rules. Like, it's funny when people talk about being bullied in the school system. Oh, I was pushed down the stairs. What? That's called assault. That is a physical assault. Like, that's not being bullied. It's someone hitting you. Likewise, somebody grabbing you by a part of your body is a sexual assault. And so, luckily, we've had 2 or 3 close calls. I say luckily because the close calls were not bad, but we've had enough of a wake-up call in the convention community that we take all of it very seriously now. Because we have so many young people, we couldn't afford not to. And I deal with it because I'm the guy that does the raid. At one of the shows that I help manage, the raid is like 3,500 people, so it's a massive just model bodies. And we do everything we can every year to try to figure out what we can do to make it safer. It's tough, we no bags, no this, no that. But then at some point it looks like we don't want anybody to have fun too. So we had these Doctor Who looking messages that would flash on the screen that would tell you, it was first it was Minecraft, if a creeper gets too close, it lets you, we did that. So we try to do everything we can, and last year I guess 2 years ago, because I don't work at that convention, I quit. Mainly because they didn't want to do things that were going to make the dance better and safer. But I had a woman write me this letter, and she's just angry, and she's talking about degenerates and deplorable people, and I couldn't even make out what it was about. And I wrote back and I'm like, ma'am, I'm sorry, I don't get where this is going. I'm run a dance, what is this? She's like, well, I know, you run a dance that perverts hide at the dance and they molest children. And I was like, whoa, what are you talking about? So at the end of all this, after I finally got her to talk, straightforward, apparently her daughters had been at my dance and someone had grabbed one of their butts, like walked up and grabbed a butt cheek or whatever. And I took that seriously, but as a person that's in charge of something, next I had to ask questions. And the first question was, okay, did someone report this? Like, did your daughters tell anyone this happened? And I got just abused in response. Like, how dare you, victim blame my daughter, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. Like, there are 3,500 people in this room. How do I know there's a problem if you don't tell me? I said, and she said, well, the last thing my daughter wants to do is talk to some big man when someone's assaulted her. And I gave her that one point. I was like, okay, I gotcha. And then she said something that made me furious. She said, besides, it was just her butt. And this is why I should not teach children or be allowed to talk to investors. Because in my response, I was like, yeah, but what if 2 butts makes a boob? Which, the partner was like, why did you say boob? And I was like, I didn't say tits, So, but scummy people do upgrade. They do, this scummy guy thinks he can get away with touching bums, then, the boobs are next or whatever. And I don't know it if nobody tells me. So the funny thing is, we finally came to a head. I was like, look, I'll give you a free badge next year, and you're welcome to come, and see what we've done to improve. But I also realized, when this was going on, that I'm a dude, so sometimes I have to step back. And when she said, my daughter might not want to report this to a dude, I was like, okay. So I have friends that skate roller derby, female roller derby friends who are not timid gals at all. They got a dead leg, an elbow, and so I got 2 of them. And the funny thing is, they became my security heads the next year, because these guys jumped on the stage, and while all these big dudes were like, Maggie was like, get off the stage. She was like kicking and throwing people off the stage. So I was like, yeah, I'm gonna get the roller derby girls all the time now. But I think that it's important that we, one, feel free to talk, but 2, when someone reports something like that to us, try to empathize a little bit. Try to say, okay, well, maybe I didn't do that. I might have come up with all the Dr. Who signs and all the whatever, but I left out this one thing. I should have had these female security guards too. But sexual harassment is something that nobody should put up with, and I guess it's a good segue to talk about the one thing that we never get to talk about in this panel, is conflict resolution, how to get out of a situation, what to do. So, convention life is easy. If you're at a convention and someone's doing something to make you feel unsafe or unwanted, or someone's harassing you, what do you do? That's it. Go find anybody in a staff shirt, staff badge. The people that run these conventions put a lot of work into it, and it starts, when this show closes today, they will start talking about next year. And they will work on this show all year long. One of the only joys we get as staff members is ejecting scummy people that try to ruin it for everybody else. It is literally, we have pictures of them, we collect their badges, it's horrible, but it's one of the only joys we get, because they're the people that don't want you guys having a good time. And if it's a matter of legality, if someone has touched you, thank you, 10? 10, okay, you did 5 and then 10. If someone's touched you or done anything illegal, this con, I know, will not hesitate to call the authorities. Most cons, I know, will not hesitate to call the authorities. In a regular situation, you have that same authority. Like I said, there's cosplayers that get to wear their costumes all day long, every day. If you're ever in a situation where you feel unsafe, call for help. Call someone. If you don't have access to a phone, make sure someone can hear you. My favorite story, the story where cosplay saved the day. I was at a convention where a young girl was abducted. And we made jokes about this hotel being sketchy because, I imagine it, because there were whole dark hallways that led to the parking garage, and we're like, ooh, I don't want to walk down here by myself. Well, two girls were coming back from dinner, and some dude in just, khaki pants and a white t-shirt grabbed this girl by the arm and just started walking away with her. And literally just grabbed her and started walking. Now, I'm going to tell you what time this happened, and those of y'all that are a part of one certain part of the convention will know why that time is important. It happened at around 6 o'clock on Saturday, or it was 5 to 6. It was right before dinner, and he dragged her into the parking garage, and she did the coolest thing in the world, screamed at the top of her lungs, and screamed. It didn't stop screaming, just scream, 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 scream. And a bunch of people that were coming back in time for the cosplay contest, who had giant prop swords, hear this and all go running towards this screaming. And this dude looks up, and there's a mob of people with swords running for all their work to them. And the guy actually pushed her onto the ground, and it was one of those parking garages that does that. And he jumped over thinking he could jump down to the next level and throw his people. So he was playing easy catch after that. So, it even made it in the paper. But that's another really important part of this. If you see somebody in danger, try to help. Be smart. You can't walk into a situation against somebody bigger than two people and start mouthing off to them. That's when you call for someone. But sometimes it's something as simple as there's a little girl that was being harassed for being a Homestuck fan, and two Italian fans went and stood with her. And they're like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "Oh, it said friends don't let friends Homestuck." And she's like, "Oh, you're that guy." And it was really funny because this Italian fan was pretty sassy. But suddenly it wasn't picking on one person, there was three of them. There were three people, and it's not as much fun for one person to pick on three people. They're suddenly outnumbered. If you see someone harassing a girl for some reason and you think they look unsafe, walk over and just tell her you like her costume. Do something just to make sure that person's not alone. It doesn't always involve the police. You can just involve the convention authorities. You can involve the convention center. When we're in a convention center, that's a whole other staff of people that are here to sometimes help. Sometimes they're just on break. But the most important thing is don't fail to act. Don't be afraid to do something or say something. Sometimes, and like I was saying, who was the lighthouse? Who did I say was the lighthouse? The pink wave, yes. Sometimes just your actions are enough to help other people. We don't ever know, there are things that we do we don't ever know mean something to someone else. There's a young lady by the name of Brianna Lawrence. She does conventions in the Midwest. She knows her. She goes by the name Free Chibi Cosplay. She loves to say it this way, she is a black, plus-size, lesbian cosplayer who writes Gun and Wing fanfiction. That's how she and her wife met, was over Gun and Wing fanfiction. But she does costuming, and she gets abused a lot for it. And the one instance, I guess this is a great way to end, because it's a good way to kind of dispel hate or whatever. She did a Princess Peach costume, and she got really, really dogged for this costume because she's black and she's Princess Peach. So first it started with fat, they were making fat jokes, they were calling her Princess Whale. And then there's a really cute picture of her kissing Yoshi, and they were saying, oh, this is the only person who'll ever kiss. And then it took a turn for the racist, and they were calling her Princess Precious. And then so she had a frying pan, because Smash Peach is best Peach. And she had the one picture of her with the frying pan, and they said something to the effect, I don't even like repeating it, they said something to the effect that given her color and size, she should be frying chicken in this pan. I'm being really polite in the way that I say what they said. And she was done. And the crazy thing is, if you know Brianna, she's the nicest, sweetest human being you will ever meet. And it broke her, but in the weirdest, kind of coolest way. Her wife called, she said, "Oh my God, honey, I'm just seeing all this stuff going on right now. She brings her ice cream when she's having a bad day. They have ice cream day. She's like, do we need to get ice cream?" And she goes, "No, but could you get me some peanut oil and some cornstarch and a half a pound of chicken? And I was like, what? And she goes, yeah, Peach wants to eat fried chicken tonight. And she got dressed back up in a Peach costume and teased her hair all crazy Peach style and took pictures of her cooking chicken and then eating. There are all these, like, you know, pictures of her just eating this chicken. And then she superimposed the hateful things people said about her on those pictures. And the next time she did her, I think it's body positivity cosplay panel, she hung them over the table. And they were there, blatant, like, child abuse photos. I know that's really rough to say, but, like, each one of them just horrifying to look at. And then she did this panel about how much she loves cosplay and did not address them. And I was like, wow, what does that mean? She goes, I was trying to show people that what people say to you shouldn't affect what you do. It shouldn't affect how you feel about yourself or your ability to do other things. And I was like, if I could drop the mic and not feel bad about it, I would. And I love microphones. But like, that bravery and that strength has echoed across the globe. I was in northern England. I was in Redcar, like a town this big in northern England, so north it's almost Scotland. And I said, I have a friend named Brianna Lawrence, and a little girl in the audience goes, pretty chippy, and like lit up. And so I told Brianna, I said, you know, you don't realize that what you do sometimes is a shot heard around the world. Like, there is a little girl somewhere that draws strength from the fact that, like, here's this woman that people shoot some of the meanest words to, and she's like, I'm going to be Wonder Woman next. And the best thing is, that was what she did. She dressed up as Wonder Woman for a comic convention, and you think the anime community is rough on women and people of color, try the comic book community. Yeah, and so she did this great Wonder Woman, and she's ample bust size. She has a giant W, and her hair is teased out. She said Wonder Woman would have teased hair. You know, because they make Disney costumes, everybody has to have a hoop skirt. So this was Wonder Woman with a hoop skirt, but it was like this blue glittery hoop skirt with silver, you know, stars on it and lasso. And she found this great brick water fountain. She stood at the top of it and took pictures of it. And she was like, you know, when I post pictures, I just count down how long it is until people start making ugly remarks. I'm almost done. And then Linda Carter retweeted that photograph. For those of y'all that don't know who that is Wonder. That's the woman that played Wonder Woman on television. And the best part about it was watching Brianna just lose it. Like, Linda Carter retweeted my photograph! So like we say, when Wonder Woman decides your Wonder Woman is good enough to Wonder Woman, you get it to Wonder Woman, you feel like Wonder Woman. So, but that's the thing. You should do what you love and be excited about it, and not let people kind of frame your style. And if you have anything you want to ask me about, I've got tons of resources in my iPad, like suicide prevention and depression and all that stuff. If you have anything you want to ask me, I'll be kind of hanging around for a little bit. But otherwise, I'll see you guys at closing ceremonies. Thank you guys for being here.